Hi guys, I'm Kayla from A Decadent Fair Personal Chefing and welcome back to my kitchen. So today we are making my favorite candy of all times, a New Orleans pecan praline. I say specifically New Orleans because pecan pralines are something pretty popular in the South in general. So you have a Texas praline, which is going to be more of a caramel, a soft caramel candy with pecans in it. But then you have the New Orleans praline, which is going to be this creamy, crumble in your mouth candy with toasted pecans, and it's just a whole different ball game. And it's ironic because they're pretty much the same few ingredients, it's just how you treat them. So once you have the perfect recipe for this, it's not a scary process. Sugar, I know for me, is scary. I don't deal with sugar, I don't deal with pastry at all. But this is not going to scare you away, I promise. I have the perfect recipe for you. Okay, so let's get started. You only need 5 simple ingredients. That's the first thing that should stop you from being afraid of dealing with this candy. You're going to have 1.5 cups of brown sugar. You're going to have 1 cup of heavy whipping cream. Half a stick or 4 tablespoons of salted butter. 1¼ cups of half pecans, and we're going to do 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Okay, so I'm going to start by turning my stove on. I'm going to start it off at about medium heat. I'm going to add my sugar to it. So for this, you're going to want to use, I have a this is a 5-quart pot that I'm using, and as you can see, it doesn't fill it at all. You want to use a pot that's a lot bigger than what you would imagine for this batch. You don't want it to just fit in there because it's going to take more time for the candy to cook, and it just kind of makes it safer. You want this candy, you want the sugar to have space to breathe and do its thing. And so I just added the heavy cream to it, and we're just going to let that cook down. It's going to, well, not cook down because it's not reducing. We're basically just going to let it boil and do its thing. You want to, a couple of things that you want to remember for dealing with any kind of candy that you're making. Make sure you have a completely clean pot. So if you cook something in there and you look and it has it has the stuff that you couldn't scrub off completely, scrub it off, please. Make sure that it's completely clean, because anything that you do with sugar, because sugar is very temperamental, can cause it to crystallize in a way that you don't want it to. It can cause it to react to what you're cooking. So make sure that your pot is completely clean so you get the perfect consistency for your candy. So it's starting to melt down. The second tip that I'm going to give you for pralines is that you don't want to stir it a whole lot. At this point, I can stir it and feel comfortable. I'm just trying to break down everything so everything mixes. But once it starts boiling, you want to kind of, as much as possible, yes, you're going to have to move it around to make sure the bottom's not burning or anything, but as much as possible, you want to leave it alone. So I'm using heavy cream. There are recipes that use evaporated milk, and yes, I tried evaporated milk, and I was not a fan of what I got. It was good, so maybe I just don't know how to. I'm not a master of that recipe, of course, but I did not like the result I got. So I'm going to stick to what I know. I've been making these since I was about 10 years old. First time I tasted it, I was like, I have to figure out how to have this on a regular basis. And I've always used heavy cream, so that's what I'm going to stick to. When you're stirring it, you don't want to splash anything up on the side. You want to kind of just try and keep everything leveled, so I'm not stirring too much around the edges. I'm bringing everything to the center, just so the sugar and the cream can mix. So while I'm waiting on my sugar to do its thing and start bubbling so I can see what texture it's going to be at, I want to go ahead and start my pecans. All I'm going to do is toast them. It should take 3 minutes. Do not leave them in there for too long because they burn quickly. I have a pan. I'm just going to throw them on the pan and throw them in the oven. Isn't that easy? No more than 3 minutes. Do not forget that. Yes, it's starting to do its thing. So that's great. You don't want to stir it too much now. This is the point where you kind of want to leave it be. If you feel like you need to do anything, you're worried about the bottom burning, which it won't, as long as you don't have it too high. And if the bottom burns, it's all burnt, so you don't have to start over at that point. You just want to go ahead and agitate it by shimmying the pot around. Okay, so you're basically going to be cooking this until it gets to 240 degrees. That's softball stage of any sugar. You want to use a candy thermometer. However, I do not have one. I have a electric instant read thermometer, and I have 2 regular thermometers. The issue with these thermometers is that they do not go to 240 degrees. These will go to about 220, but I just prefer, since I don't have a candy thermometer, which is the glass round ones, I'm going to use a different method to check to see if it's at softball stage. Alright, so check it out. The sugar is boiling and doing its thing. It's a slow boil. It's not spattering at me. This is what you want. So we're going to go ahead and check to see what stage the sugar is at. Like I said, we're going to use our cup of iced water. I'm actually going to pour some of the cold water into a separate bowl, just so it's easier to get the sugar out afterward. We're going to use a clean spoon. Like I said, everything must be clean. So, I'm going to just drop it in. You're going to touch to see what the texture looks like, and look at that. That's what you want. That is done. You can form it into a ball. That's perfect. So let's go ahead and move quickly here. I'm going to add my butter to this. Turn it down to low. I'm going to add my 4 tablespoons of butter. I'm gonna add my pecans. Which are all toasted. And lastly, I'm going to add my vanilla. You want to add everything else first because the alcohol in the vanilla will kind of make the sugar react and bubble all crazy. It's not going to do anything to it, but just to kind of avoid the theatrics, I add the cooler stuff first to cool it down, and then I add my vanilla. Two teaspoons. I guess I'll measure. I'm not a fan of measuring, but fine. I'm not even aware where the measuring stuff is around here. 1 teaspoon, 2 teaspoons. Bubble, you hear it? Oh yeah. And that's the calm version. So you're just gonna stir until this gets thick. Alright, so we are at the consistency that we were looking for. When you're stirring it at this point, you just want it to get thick like that, where it's staying in sections. The edges will be thicker. And so now you want to move quickly. We're going to go ahead and put this on the pan. Okay, so to put this on the pan, you're going to need to put parchment paper on your sheet pan. You're going to use 2 bigger spoons, like cereal spoons. Just going to scoop and drop. Use the other spoon to kind of scrape it down. Pralines are done. This is my favorite part. It's time to taste. Just a recap. All I did was add the brown sugar and the cream together, let it come to a boil, don't stir, shimmy, and then you're going to add your butter and your pecans and then your vanilla. Stir it rigorously at that point because that's when you want it to start crystallizing to have that perfect graininess to it. And then I just spooned them out and put them on this pan, and now I have these little plops of heaven right here. And I just put them in the refrigerator to cool them down, and they harden. They harden at room temperature too, so if you're not impatient like me, then you can just leave them on the counter, but not on a hot surface. Okay, I'll take this little baby one. My praline. Yep, that's what I was looking for. That's what I wanted. Now I don't have to drive to New Orleans and spend a whole weekend, which actually wouldn't be so bad because I love New Orleans, but I can make these at home now. That makes me so happy. You should try these. They're super easy. You can check out the recipe on my website, decadentfare.com, which will be down below. And just keep following me. I'll be making even more delicious videos. See you later.